Hey guys, it's Joey, welcome back. This is the second video in the protection mini-series, and this one is going to be auras, personal boundaries and shielding. Apologies this wasn't earlier, I meant to do this yesterday and it just got away from me yesterday. So we're going to start with this video because this is about energy work, perhaps psychological work where you don't require any tools, and we're going to do that first, and then in some of the other videos we're going to look at different tools that you can use for protection if you choose to. And the thing about that is you don't have to use tools if you don't want to, but if you personally feel drawn to a particular tool, be it crystals, be it candles, be it poppets, be it sachets, anything of, and all the things that we're going to go through, or meditation or whatever, if you feel drawn to a particular tool, then you use that. If you think that you can be empowered by something that speaks to you, then, and you want to use that, then you go with your intuition, your gut, your feeling, and you do that because that's going to work best for you, because you are drawn to that. And you know, even if other people are saying you don't need to use anything, or you shouldn't use this or that or the other, and you feel that you really ought to in your own personal intuition, then you go ahead and do that. And that's the first thing that we're actually going to touch on before we go into aura and well, this is kind of personal boundaries actually. Is the personal intuition to knowing what's best for you for protection work, or indeed any spiritual work. Given enough time and consideration away from the say-so of anybody else, it is likely that your own intuition will tell you what works best for you in terms of all magical or spiritual practice. It's really up to you and where you best feel enthused. If you feel completely and utterly excited by crystals, and you are overjoyed to see them, you like to go into crystal shops and pick them up and feel them, and you can feel their energies, and it interests you and it sparks your imagination and it sparks your excitement, then you go ahead and you use that and explore that and then incorporate that into your personal practice. One of the important things about personal boundaries within magical practice, and in protection in particular for this video, is that you are listening to yourself, your intuition, your gut, your personal understanding of what will work best for you and your energy. There is obviously a lot of information about how to protect yourself, and people will put out, just as I am right now, a video or a book or a blog or whatever, information about how best to protect yourself. And my personal feeling on this is that the best way to protect yourself is to listen to yourself. That you know what makes you feel uncomfortable, you know what certain behaviours you really can't abide, you know what sort of feeling you get when your energy is being invaded, or you feel like spell work is being cast against you. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. You will know if you spend the time getting to know your own energy, getting to know your own personal boundaries. And you can do this in so many simple ways. You can just make a list, just write things down, I don't find this behaviour tolerable, it drives me nuts. So obviously this kind of energy is bothering me. I don't like to see certain kinds of trauma, if certain images of certain things really, really bother you more than other things, then that's a particular energy type which is invasive to your personal boundaries. And that can be based on all sorts of things. It can be based on personal experience and personal events in your life, memories. It's just an intuition, gut feeling about something. Perhaps it's happened to you in a past life. You may or may not be aware of that, but it's just sort of an innate fear of something. Now, you may also have a phobia of something, like heights, snakes, all sorts of things. And that's actually tying into a particular kind of energy that really bothers you in your personal boundaries. That's interesting. A white feather just fell from the sky down onto the front lawn. I think we're on the right track. Okay. So if a particular energy bothers you, you can then sort of identify that within realms of your personal boundaries. So let's take snakes, for example. And is it that you had biblical upbringing and that fear is there? Is that something you need to work through on a psychological level? Is it just, it's not that, but you've always just been kind of afraid of them and the venom and the way they move or the look of them, and you can't fully explain it? Perhaps it's a past life thing, you're not quite sure. Well, there are herbs that are known to repel snakes. There are crystals that supposedly are used to repel snakes. You can go and research into these things and find that sort of thing. And it may not be snakes per se that you are going to be afraid of or that is bothering you, but rather that energy. So even if you're in a situation where you're very unlikely to see a snake, you live in England and we see an odd snake here and there, but it's not like, rattlesnake business. Unless you go to pet stores, probably. I don't know. I've never really looked for one. But the energy of it is bothering you in some way. So you go and find, say, crystals if that's what you're into, or herbs if that's what you're into, or perhaps you set up a candle spell and, okay, what colours do I associate with snakes? What's the image of a snake that comes straight into my mind? Is it like a brown? Is it a red? Is it a green? And then work within all of those factors to understand what energy is bothering you in your personal boundary. And then you can write everything down, is probably the easiest way. So green or red, and the noise, the hissing. I've had this dream about it. Dreams are a good way to identify problem areas, and you just write a long list, and then you start to look up correspondences and associations, and you start to go through that in your own intuitive manner until you sort of realize what it is about certain situations, certain things, certain people, certain phobias that worry you, frighten you, make you feel negative, and that are invading your personal space, your personal boundary. And you make up a list, and then you sort of basically do a counter, an antidote to that. And okay, so for example, like I said, you could look up herbs or crystals that repel snakes, and basically you're repelling that energy. Then if you were bothered by a particular colour, you can maybe go for the flip side of the spectrum. So if it was an orange sandy type snake that you kept dreaming of, you might flip it and go for a blue candle, which is on the opposite side of the colour wheel. And that could then tie into a bag which you created with your protective energies in it. It could tie into what colours you wore to increase your personal boundary protection, or even candle magic, things of that nature. So that's personal boundaries. Personal boundaries also ties into sort of psychological with other people. And by setting up your personal boundaries in respect to what we have just been talking about, then you can start to do that in regards to your interactions with people, be it at school, be it at work, be it at college, be it in general, I don't know, wherever it is that people are invading your personal space, your personal boundaries, people that are taking too much from you, be it energy-wise, be it time-wise, you just feel exhausted, they're constantly negative, you don't want to hear it anymore, you don't want to feel it anymore, blah, 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 blah. It's bringing you down, it's making you feel bad, your energy is low. Okay, so first and foremost about personal boundaries is realizing that you have the right to say no. And no is a really powerful word, because so many of us are afraid to tell people no because we're afraid they're not going to like us, we're afraid we're not going to fit in, all the rest of it, and then we give too much of ourselves and we end up in a bad place. We end up with a low energy, we end up being assaulted by negative energies, entities, things. It brings our protection to an all-time low and leaves us vulnerable. And the thing is about it, there are ways of saying no which are perfectly polite, acceptable, and even if you have to go through training yourself to say no. So the first thing is to identify things, places, people that are just taking too much energy from you. It's not productive, it's not helping you, it's not progressing your life or your path, and it's just making you feel rotten inwardly to a ridiculous degree all the time. And we're not talking about a bad day at work, we're not talking about a bad day with a person, we're not talking about one-off experiences, we're talking about something which is constantly weighing on you, grinding on you, and basically sapping all the energy and life and joy out of your life. And those things are basically invading your personal boundaries. So learning to say no, learning to limit your exposure as much as possible. These things are important, and of course sometimes it's a very difficult situation. So it's like in a job, you have one person that you really don't get on with, but you like the job in general, you don't want to leave with the job, it becomes a little bit complicated, and it's about semi-banishing basically. And this has come up a few times over the week with 3 or 4 different people, and I've been talking about setting personal boundaries in very firm ways and then allowing that person, that energy, that situation only in one sphere of your life. And even if that's setting up something in your home, so when you pass through your door, you pass through your gateway, that energy is not allowed to follow you. And it can be something like setting up crystals by the door, setting up a little herbal blend sachet by the door, hanging a branch of rowan or yew for death and rebirth. What else? I mean, like, you could use loads of different kinds of wood by the front door, or a charm, even a poppet, you know, anything that really is going to trigger you on a psychological level, as well as an emotional level, as well as a spiritual energy level. And you're basically creating boundaries. So when you walk through that door, you are leaving that behind you. And I'm not going to go too much into particular magical items because that's going to be a different videos. We want to be talking about the energies behind things at the minute. And you can even do banishing work for that person, but being really specific. It's not a flat out, I banish this person from my life, because perhaps you can't. You know, it's your boss, it's your family, and it's not a situation you completely want out of your life, completely gone, but you need a measure of space. So coupling banishing work and protection work, you sort of semi-banish whatever the situation is, whatever the person is, and you put it in very strict guidelines. You word your spell, or however, to a very particular angle, if you like. And the best way of doing this is having your own sacred space, your own protective space, whereby you basically seal it all off. And once you've gone into it, everything, be it your home or whatever, once you've gone into that, you leave everything else out there by the door. And you can do that on a magical, spiritual level, like I discussed. And the psychological level of it is training yourself to leave that out. Once you've walked through the front door, you don't bring it home with you, basically, in your own head. And even if it means ranting to yourself in the car, singing out loud to the radio full blast, doing something to just purge that nonsense of the day so you don't carry it with you into the future, into your home, that's a really good way of setting boundaries between what happened today and then going forward, so it doesn't ruin your whole day. So going on from that, we're going to talk about auras. So your aura is basically your personal energy field. Most people will be aware of the term aura, I should imagine. Some people can see auras. Some people can see auras with psychic training, and some people just don't see it, but they sort of visualize their own aura. And people who see auras sort of see like an energy around an individual, whether it be themselves or others. Some people can see colours in the aura, which indicates mood and emotional well-being, and even physical well-being, and even spiritual well-being. And some people tie it into chakra work, and some people see it as a separate thing. It just depends on your personal feelings on the matter. I personally think everything is interconnected with energy, so keeping your chakras healthy and keeping your aura healthy is quite important, because these are your energy centers. Your chakras are your energy centers, and you can do work with them quite easily through meditation and things, just to clean out each chakra, and seal your aura. And these are some of the things that I came across very early on in my path. And the thing about your energy aura is you can train yourself to have it as a personal protective barrier and personal boundary, basically. And it can take a lot of training. And I had a question from, she says, rock and roll, about empathic picking up on energy and taking energy into yourself. And that can be, particularly for empaths, a struggle with things getting into your energy circle. Basically, you're taking it into yourself. Your aura is allowing things to pass through it in an unhealthy way. You're taking it into yourself, and you have to, in my opinion, practice creating shields around yourself, helping seal your aura off so no energy sort of gets through it and no entities or anything can hook into it. And it's basically creating a shell around yourself, a shell around your aura and your chakras and things. And there is multiple ways of doing it. Okay, so shielding ties into this. And there are a number of different ways in which I learned to shield myself and shield my aura. A lot of them are going to be in a different video. This video is talking about the psychological and the energy work. So first and foremost is being aware of your aura, of your chakras, working with those energies and working on cleansing them. And so obviously purification ties into protection innately. I don't think you can have one without the other. So with your chakras, you can go through a meditation where and one of the simplest ones that I was first taught is visualizing yourself on a sandy beach, and you see all the sand beneath you, and you can feel the warmth of the sun on you, and you digging your heels in and to that warm white sand, and you visualize the sun as being a quartz crystal with a point, and you visualize energy coming down into your crown chakra, and that energy sort of fragments out from your crown chakra, pushing out any negative energy, and you see all that negative energy come out as black ick, and you see that sinking into the sand, and the sand sort of recycles it, transforms it into pure white energy, and then it's gone. And then you do this for all of your chakras until the energy is running right through you, right down through your root chakra into the sand, and you are cleansed, and you allow any negative ick just to sink into the sand. That black ink just sinks in and is transformed into white energy. It's recycled. So that's one way of doing that. Another way that I was taught very early on was the elastic aura. And if you train yourself in this frequently enough, it becomes reflexive. Trust me. I had to seal my aura over and over and over again when I was living in a very negative living environment. And that was like being constantly assaulted by negative energy, the icky feeling, and psychic vampires. It was like constantly having your energy jabbed at until you fortify your aura. And the best way of seeing that is to visualize your aura around you and visualize it having an elastic shell around it, and anything that tries to penetrate it, even the sharpest, nastiest barb, it comes into your aura. Is the best way of, right, so this is your elastic aura. It comes into it and it gives a little and then bounces, and anything just bounces off. And the elastic aura is probably my favourite energy method of just bounce. And if you laugh, and laughter, it helps. So even if you feel a little bit silly doing any of these things, giggle at it, and the giggling and the laughter seriously helps to uplift you. It helps to ridicule that which is negative energy, etc. It disperses it. It's a really beautiful vibration which sort of vibrates out into the universe and clears off negative crap. Keeping yourself purified as well can obviously really help with your personal protection boundaries, because if you are not in a negative space, if you're constantly purifying yourself, cleansing your chakras, doing cleansing work, keeping yourself healthy on all levels, then your inner energy is much more positive, which strengthens sealing off your aura from negative attack. And there are meditations and things out there for actually healing and sealing your aura, and it generally goes along the lines of visualizing your aura, feeling your aura for cold spots or hot spots, or basically feeling the energy of your overall aura and feeling where things feel different, and then visualizing your aura as a sort of white energy, and then going over it with your hands or a feather or a crystal wand or your other wand or any crystal that you really resonate with, again, whichever you feel best comfortable with, but you can do it with your projective hand if you like, and sort of going over and band-aiding or bandaging it over with healing white light, so that you are filling that crack, you are filling that void filling that void with white energy and healing it over. And then it becomes filled and becomes whole, and you are basically sealing your aura up like that. So I think that's everything for this video. Any questions, please leave them below, and many blessings.